Yuck! Hang on, I just had another flashback. Michael Califf, author of A Very Broken System. Just thinking then about George Marrogi and the whole entire story, including his getting obviously harassed and mentally tortured and whatnot. MRC, after the prison riots, is filled with all those gadgets. Believe me. Why do you think Pusey was there? In fact, George Marrogi is probably in exactly the same cell they were sleep-depriving Pusey. Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, so with that in mind, let's recap this one. The Victorian system, that's police, the whole lot, with all their arrogant glory of not being held to account ever, going back to that 2007 OPI investigation that they built an entire prison unit for, that type of rotten culture. That led to this. Now remember this, we don't have a deal system. You can't just walk in and go, hey, Michael Califf's prepared to plead guilty, as long as we do. It doesn't work like that. You can put forward what they call a sentence indication, and the rest of it happens through negotiation from your lawyer and the prosecution, and basically that's where the deal happens. But it doesn't happen like a plea deal out loud like they do with, the Pitbull or Hallahan in America. It doesn't work like that. It has to happen like, well, okay, it'd be more issue to run with that. Yeah, okay, and he's going to plead guilty to that. Okay. Done like that between the prosecution and the lawyer, and that's how it's done. That's the deal system. But in Victoria, what happened was, and this happened, this was all exposed, although it's very hard to find this story, but it did run, believe me. And what happened was there was a relatively high profile bikie who was testifying against other bikies or organised criminals, and he explained what was happening. And what was happening for about 15 odd years, 15 that I know of, minimum actually that I know of. No, about 15 years that I know of. What was happening is they were allowing, organised criminals, the biggest drug dealers that Melbourne has seen, any of the biggest drug arrests you've seen, and then quietly the charge goes away and you don't really hear anything about it, it doesn't get a news story or anything. What was happening there is these massive drug importers and drug dealers were getting charged. And what they were doing, they were backroom deal, pretending to be handing in a gun sachet, like a gun sash, I hate that word, a gun arsenal. They were pretending, or in some cases, they were pretending to be like, hey, I know, if if they agree to this, I'll hand in a gun import, and literally handing it in at the container, at the import stage. So, but nobody would get arrested. Don't mistake that. They would just say, hey, container 47 coming from XYZ has got guns in it, like that. No arrests made on anybody else, just the guns were handed in. Well, in the arrogance and not following process, what was happening is, for about 15 years, the drug importers were conning Victoria Police. So they were going, and these are the highest members of Victoria Police, don't forget. They were pretending to be handing in a gun import or a gun stook or whatnot, when they were arranging it themselves after the initial arrest. Literally. Now that there is about as good an example. Don't forget, we are in the worst shape by a long way we have ever been in Victoria in all things drugs, law and order, the lot. We're in the worst shape we've been since 1992 minimum. So that's why I'm pointing it out, because that not following process and that arrogance and that Starsky and Hutch bad boy, we're the bad coppers, it doesn't serve anybody. And the proof is well and truly in. Well and truly. The drugs are everywhere. The organised crime is through the roof. It is a nonsense. Yet they could spend resource after resource after resource. I'm talking possibly like 3.5 million a year. Possibly 7 million. I don't know. Between 3.5 and 7, I'm going to estimate, based on the figures that have been given out for the Porpunkah 400 officers up there in Porpunkah. They spent between 3.5 and 7 million a year going after me, not for criminality, because I dared question their integrity. Now you tell me we don't need a big bad royal commission into Victoria and quickly? Oh Nelly. Stay tuned, guys. We'll have more from A Very Broken System. See ya.